All right, good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining me. We'll go ahead and get started here. If you got your questions, go ahead and post them. It's either going to be below the video if you're on a mobile device. If you're on a laptop, desktop, computer, something like that, it'll be to the right of the video, or it should be, depending on how you get your screen set up. So anyway, I always start with questions that were asked up to an hour before we get started, before the office hours start. So if you're new to office hours, just a heads up, if you post a question more than an hour before the office hours, it's not likely to get answered. The reason why I do that is I just want to make sure that I'm answering for questions who are likely here to see their questions get answered. So we'll start here with Neil S. So Neil S says, how to stop rotating your wrist, which is causing the club face to strike the ball open, pushing all shots to the right. How to stop rotating your wrists. It sounds like you need to rotate your wrists, right? So basically, if you're leaving the face open, there's certain things that you'll want to do to manipulate the face or get the face to open or close. So basically, let's go over the three things that kind of control your face angle more or less. So one is the release of the club, right? So if I'm releasing the club earlier, right, if I push it backwards, right, that closes the face. Releasing the club early is like pushing the handle backwards. That closes the club face. So that could be part of the issue that's happening there. You could be releasing the club later, which is not likely the issue that's going on, because it's not very common to see people release the club too late. Most people, probably 80-85% of golfers, amateur golfers that is, are releasing the club early. So the other pieces that leave the face open are a high handle. So a high handle will leave the face open. So if I have this like this, and I have the handle high, so if you're someone who's coming in like that, right, that could be leaving the face open. The other things are just not rolling the hands over. So you're talking about rotating the wrist. You're not rotating the wrist. If you're leaving that face open, you need to rotate the wrist. So rolling over the arms and or twisting the handle with the wrist. So that's this motion with the wrist. That's going to close the face. So there's actually a great drill in the move course called the tennis racket drill. I'd highly recommend that drill to help you to get that club face square earlier in the swing. So that way you can continue into the downswing with a square club face. And you don't have to feel like you have to roll the hands over hard late to get the face squared up. So to get to that drill, I click the house icon at the top of the page. That'll take you to the home page. And if you scroll down the home page, you'll see a list of all the courses. Select the move course, and 1.3, the tennis racket drill, that's going to be the drill that you want to help you start getting that face more squared up at impact. So Andrea S. says, I watched a video from Clay recently where he focuses on the Harry Vardon drill, where your left arm unfolds from the top and slams into the impact bag. And at the same time, your body is rotating open to make powerful contact with the ball. This doesn't seem to fit into the Top Speed Golf system. How does this link up with the system? Is this the feel TSG wants you to feel with the arms? So basically, the drill that he's talking about is you almost want to feel like you're hammering down a hammer that's kind of behind you and to the right. So when you start your downswing, you almost want to feel like you're hammering down, like you're getting down, you're hammering down. So that feeling is not good if you just do that on its own. If you just do that, well, obviously, I'm going to be slamming my club into the ground behind me. I need to add this feeling in with my body rotation, and that's what Clay talks about in the Harry Vardon drill, is making sure that when you have that feeling that you're really throw my arms down, I don't rotate, I'm going to swing too much from the inside. I'm probably going to chunk the ball. I'm probably going to hit blocks out to the right. If I get to the golf ball, maybe even some snap hooks, I need to have this feeling paired up with that feeling. And now you see, once I do that, now that looks more like a golf swing. So that's all the drill is to help you get that proper feeling of that powerful feeling of coming down correctly in the golf swing. It goes right with the Top Speed Golf system. If your spine, if we just talk about your spine angles and just how it relates to this drill, If my spine is like this, if it's vertical, if I'm leaning toward the target, I'm going to want to come down like this, right? That hammer is going to be driven out here. I don't want to do that. I want the hammer being driven out here. It's hard for me to lean this way and hammer down over here. I need to lean this way so that I can hammer it down more in this area. So we need to be angled away with our spine. That's what you're going to see with all tour players. Power turn, right? If I'm only turning my shoulders this much, I'm not going to have much power to hit down, to swing down with. So you got to have a good power turn. If I don't have any lag in the swing, same thing. If I'm not lagging this club, getting some lag. If I'm going like this, right, at the start of the swing, I'm going to have nothing by the time I get to that. I'm not going to be hammering down very good, right? If you look at most tour players, as they come down, when their hands get to about right here, that club's parallel to the ground. That's that same thing that you're doing with this bag, right? If you've gone and watched the drill, I believe the video is called "Have You Been Swinging Your Irons Wrong Your Whole Life?" or something like that. The thumbnail of the drill, it's from, I don't know, a month ago or so or something. We released it on the site, but basically there's a nail in the thumbnail of the video. But I believe the video is called "Have You Been Hitting Your Irons Wrong Your Whole Life?" But basically, if I don't have any lag, right, and I start casting this club right here, well, I'm not going to be putting much power into that bag. I need to get some lag so I can really pop down into that bag really, really well. So that's another piece. Compression line, right? So if I'm bumping my hips like this, right, to get this club to work from the inside instead of rotating, right? That's that last piece of that drill is we want to make sure that we're rotating. Then I'm just going to, that's not going to end well. I'm going to chunk and hit behind the golf ball. So compression line is a big part of it. And then the straight line release. I need to be releasing this club out in front, having that feeling of coming down. So that drill falls right in line with the Top Speed Golf system. You just have to think about it a little bit, how that all relates. It's not anything directly that, hey, we need to have our spine angle this way. Clay doesn't talk about that in that video, but it all relates to the Top Speed Golf system. It's all connected together. You need to be, to do that drill well. You also, if you're doing pieces of the Top Speed Golf system poorly, then that drill may help you to get in better positions with the Top Speed Golf system. If you're having a hard time doing that drill, so let's say you're leaning toward the target and you're having a hard time getting that, you're having that feeling of driving the nail, back here instead of, you're driving the nail out here instead of back here where you should be, then it could be a spine angle thing. You may want to work on your stable fluid spine. So it's a good drill all around, but it definitely, coincides with what we talk about in the Top Speed Golf system. All right. And typically at the end of all those videos that we talk about, if you watch all the way to the end of the video, Clay typically ties it in with the Top Speed Golf system. Typically we say, hey, this drill is great and everything, but if you really want to get this working a lot better or ingrain this, then you need to work on this part of the system. So it's usually the move, it's usually lag, it's usually a piece of the Top Speed Golf system or the move or the 20-minute distance fix. I got to tie my shoe here real quick. So yeah, good question. But yeah, you just got to, break down everything that you're really doing in the drill and how that relates to the Top Speed Golf system for sure. All right. So next question here. So David K says, as a 5 handicap, I don't want to stop playing golf, but my spinal stenosis issue on the right side, am a right-handed golfer, make it painful for me to stay down through contact and follow through. Do you have any recommendations for a follow through that would work, but less painful than what you teach? Feet closer together helps somewhat. Thanks. David, I wish I could help, but honestly, I'm not really sure. I honestly don't even know what spinal stenosis is. So I don't know really what the limitation is. But you kind of have to make a decision, I wish I could help you, but I honestly really don't know. If what I would recommend doing is, maybe talk to your doctor about it. Most doctors do play golf. It's a lot of doctors play golf. So it might be, if you have a doctor that plays golf, that would be a really, that was who I would recommend talking to about it. Because I don't know the ins and outs of what you're dealing with. I wish I did, but I don't. I wish I could help you, but I honestly don't know. What I mean. If you can't, I don't know what you can do. If you can't come all the way around and get your hips pointed toward the target. I mean, if you can't follow through at all, it's going to be difficult to play golf. Because you're just not going to have a lot of speed. Like I said, I don't know what you're dealing with. I wish I could help you, but I'd recommend finding a doctor that maybe plays golf. It shouldn't be hard to find, but or maybe checking out somebody who's TPI certified, like a medical professional that's TPI certified. You can find someone. If you're not familiar with what TPI stands for Titleist Performance Institute. And I'm TPI certified golf instructor, but I know the golf swing. Like I can take, if you have a physical limitation as far as, I don't know what spinal stenosis is, but let's say you can only move your arms so much or your hips so much. I wish I could help you. I just don't really know what to tell you. So Ali S says, what is the sequence in the downswing comprising of the following: shallowing club? What is the sequence in downswing comprising of following: shallowing of club through forearm, squaring the club using a wrist movement, leading with weight shift, and left hip rib cage rotation? So what you're wanting is the move. If you're wanting to work on what you just talked about, that's essentially the move course. So if you want to get the link to the move course, select the house icon at the top of the page, then go to the home page and scroll down the home page. You'll see a list of all the courses. Select the move, because that's basically what you're talking about right there. And just for those of you who aren't aware of what the move is getting this club where it's on plane and square as soon as possible in the downswing. Right. So we're up here at the top of the swing. This club is typically not going to be super square. It's going to be pretty close to square, depending on who you are. It may be closed. It may be open. It may be already be square, and you may not need to do much to get it square. But then getting it back on plane, and it may already be on plane. You just need to keep it there. But that's basically what it is. The move is getting the club squared early in this downswing and on plane early in the downswing. All those things that you talked about are about making that happen, getting that club down in there. So that's the move course. If you're interested in working on that, then go to the move and start working on the drills and work through all the reps. So Joseph S says, I'm having trouble getting forward shaft lean to compress the ball. No matter what I try, to seem to keep flipping at impact. Maybe my right hand is too strong on the downswing. So Joseph, you're trying to fix one of the most difficult things in the golf swing to fix. There's not even anything that's even close. It is the most difficult thing. So when you're working through this, there's so many variables that can cause you not to be able to do it. But I can go over the three main ones that I see with people who struggle to get forward shaft lean. One is coming down steep. So if you look at your golf swing and you see that this club is in this steep position, so you're at the top of the swing and then you're starting down, this club is in a more vertical position. Typically what happens is because this club is now off plane, my club plane is over in this area, I now have to make some sort of compensation to manipulate and get this club back on plane. Otherwise, I'm going to swing over the top or I'm going to stick this club right in the ground behind the golf ball. So in order to get that club on plane, what most people do is they'll stand up. And when you stand up, you have to flip to get to the ball. Now you can hit the ball straight, but you're losing your forward shaft lean. So if you're steep, that's going to be the move, getting the club back on plane as soon as possible. So I'd be working on the move. If you are someone who struggles to get the club face square at impact, a lot of people flip their natural movement or the natural inclination is to release the club early to square up the face, because that's a means to close the face. So the face will be open, and then at the very end, to get that face closed, they'll flip and square the face that way. So if you're doing that, then you may want to work on the move as well, because that's going to help you to get that club to where it's squaring up earlier. The straight line release is also another one. So I wish I could tell you it's going to be easy. It's just one drill you need to do, and you're going to nail it, and you're going to be getting forward shaft lean in no time. But unfortunately, it just doesn't work that way. You have to start out slow, start out with short, slow swings, get forward shaft lean there, and then build up the speed to longer and faster swings and get forward shaft lean there. Then go longer and faster swings, get forward shaft lean there. So you got to get it slow before you can get it fast. So I'd recommend working through straight line release course, working through the move course, and the other piece is lag. So if you're coming down in the downswing and you're already doing this, right? So at the very top of the swing, you start doing that from the very beginning, it's going to be very difficult to release that club out in front, right? And to get forward shaft lean. So if you're seeing that, you may want to work on lag. And when you're working on lag, make sure that you're not going like this, opening the face and turning the club down. Because that's a big mistake that I see what people do when they try to get lag. They go up here and then they try to go like this. Well, if I do that, if you look what happens here, if I yank down on it, that one, typically when I do that, my lead wrist goes like this, and that opens the face. So now, and then also when I pull down, that gets the shaft steep. So now from here, I get here, and then I've got to do that as I'm coming into the golf ball. So when you're getting this lag, it needs to be basically, it's more about letting the momentum of the club do the work for you. That's really about what lag is all about. Getting this club, getting kind of these looser hands, letting the club kind of do the work. Because if you're going like this, you're trying to force the club into some sort of position. Whereas if you're getting this club to work nicely, then you're allowing the club to do the work for you. So that's what I'd be doing, is working on those three pieces. Look at your swing, look at what's going on. If you want help with this, then I'd recommend working with a Top Speed Golf instructor. So myself, Robin, Chris, and any of the instructors that we have. If you're interested in working with a Top Speed Golf instructor, go to the Get a Review page at the top of or Get a Review link at the top of the page there, and then scroll down and join somebody's. If there's a spot available, go ahead and grab it. If not, join the waiting list. So that way you can get notified whenever spots become available. I just opened up some spots to my waiting list this morning, and I believe I'm sold out. If there's a spot later, go ahead and take it. But I think I'm pretty sure that I sold out. I checked my email right before I jumped on. I think I opened up 10 spots, and I think I got 10 emails. But sometime hopefully here in the future, I can open up some spots again. I'm not sure when I'll be able to, but hopefully sometime here in the future I'll be able to, and then we can do it at that time. But yeah, join the waiting list. We have other instructors that open up spots too. So make sure that you join the waiting list, and that way you can get notified whenever spots become available. If you don't join the waiting list, then you may never get notified. But I wish, like I said, I would just be consistent, be persistent every single day, work on it, try to do it every single day. And if you keep doing it and get better every single day with it, you'll eventually get there. But understand that it's one of the most difficult things to do. And it's not something you go out in a couple of range sessions and you'll start getting forward shaft lean. It's something that's going to take a long, long time, thousands of reps to get to where you're getting good with it. As Charles says, how do I keep my left arm from getting away from my body in the downswing? So it could be some things. The most common thing that I see is that people, their spine angles get too vertical or leaning toward the target. So if you watch here, if I'm at the top of the swing and I have my body kind of angled like this, my natural inclination with my lead arm is going to be to want to kind of come out like this. Whereas if I'm nice and angled away like that, my natural inclination is for my lead arm to work more like this, right? So I would try to feel like you are more angled away at the top, and that your lead arm and like you're almost like if I was standing on top of a clock here and toward you, that would be 6 o'clock on the clock. I would try to feel like I'm more towards 7 o'clock with my arm, right? So I'm here, I'm angled away, and I'm more toward 7 o'clock. That's going to allow me to get my lead arm working down in the right position. So stable fluid spine course to get you to where you're nice and angled away, and then that feeling of your lead arm being in that 7 o'clock position as you're right here at the top. That's going to help you to get that club to work nicely from the inside instead of leaning toward the target and having my arms more toward that 5 o'clock position where you're going to be swinging over the top. That's going to cause some issues. So Matthew W. says, hey, Q, I posted a question last week about hanging back when trying to achieve 20 degrees of spine tilt at impact. Your comment, which was a good one, was a focus on weight shift into the lead side. Can you give me a few feels or drills, tips to achieve getting weight into my lead side, both when and how? So I would recommend working on the step drill. So most people shift their weight way too late. So they don't start their weight shift until they're at the top of the swing, and then they're starting down. You need that weight shift to be starting as you're getting up to the top of the swing. So if you look at tour players, initially they're really loading up. So right away, like even before the club starts going back, they're loading up into their trail foot. And then as they get to about right here, where they're in that halfway up position, my hands are getting above my waist now, they're actually starting to move their momentum toward their lead side. So they're moving their momentum toward their lead side, and most tour players are getting pressure, a good amount of pressure in that lead foot before the downswing even starts. And that allows them to get that good proper rotation and get angled away, because they get here and then they push into the ground to get their body in an angled away position. What I see with most amateur players is a lot of times they either have a reverse weight shift, which means they're leaning toward the target already, like at the very top of the swing. They get here. So at the very start of the swing, they're getting to their lead side. Or what happens is they load up and they don't have any momentum going toward the target, and then they start their arms down, and that's too late. Their arms are already flying in front of the body. So there's a great drill. It's called the step drill, where you keep your feet together at the start, and then as soon as you start your backswing, you're stepping forward. So it's forcing you to get that momentum of your body moving forward earlier in the swing. So if you want to check out that drill, it's in several videos on the website. But one that I think where Clay mentions a lot of other stuff in the video is called How to Start the Downswing. So that's what I would recommend doing. Just go search the word downswing. It's a video. It's called How to Start the Downswing. It's got some yellow lettering in the thumbnail. It should be the 4th or 5th search result whenever you search downswing. So one word in the upper right-hand corner, there's a little search box there. Search downswing. If you're on a mobile device, click the icon in the upper right-hand corner that's 3 horizontal lines. Then that'll expand a menu. Scroll down on that menu, and you'll see at the bottom of that, on that menu, you'll see the little search box, search downswing, and you should find that video that I'm talking about, how to start the downswing. Clay demonstrates that step drill and a lot of other good stuff in there as well. And I think that's really going to help you with what you're looking for. So John M says, do I go ahead and do the 20-minute distance fix even though I'm hitting some slices and pulls? It's up to you. It depends on how bad the slices and pulls are, because you don't want to go and work on the 20-minute distance fix and then you're just going to hit it further into the trees or bigger slice. So it may be beneficial for you to work on the stop never slice again course, because that's going to get you to swing more from the inside. That's what I would look at doing. But yeah, it just depends on how bad. If it's a workable, playable slice and pull, if you're still staying in play, then I would say, yeah, add some speed to that. And then maybe after that, work on straightening it out. But if it's already kind of out of play, you can't keep it in play at all, then I would go to that never slice again course and work through those drills. Because the slices and pulls are caused by the same issue, which is an over the top, right? if you're slicing and pulling, you're coming over the top. So what you need to do is work through that never slice again course, because that's going to get you to start swinging more from the inside. So to get to that course, click the house icon, and then that'll take you to the home page. If you scroll down the home page, you'll see a list of all the courses. Select the bonus course, never slice again, and start working through those drills to get your slice in order. Spend, if you're working on it, spend a couple weeks on that. Get to where you're really comfortable with getting those nice draws, and get to where you can start to fade and draw it. And then once you have a pretty good control of your face and your path, you'll likely gain a little bit of distance, because typically when you're slicing, you're cutting across the ball. It's typically hard to hit it in the center of the face when you're cutting across the ball too. So you're probably going to gain some distance just from hitting the ball more solid. So highly recommend that if you're doing that. But if it's really workable, if it's not too far off, then yeah, the 20-minute distance fix would be fine. The only other thing I'd say about the 20-minute distance fix is a lot of times that I find with people, and you may want to just try this, and if it goes awry, then go to the Never Slice Again course. But I have found with distance clinics and things like that, because we basically do the 20-minute distance fix at our distance clinics when we have them, and hopefully we'll start having them again here soon. But a lot of times people start hitting the ball straighter, and I think it's just because people start to swing more athletically, use the natural momentum of the club in their swing to get some speed. Whereas a lot of times people are slicing, they're manipulating the club, they're trying to force the club into a certain position, and it can make things difficult. So when you swing as hard as you can with 100% effort, like you do in the 20-minute distance fix, a lot of times you don't do that. So you can maybe try it, see how it goes initially. And then if it's just, big time terrible, then you can start working on the Never Slice Again course, or you can just start working on the Never Slice Again course right now. So John S says, just want to check a sequence of forward swing. I think it is sit, flatten, shaft, and square face is right elbow, moves to right side, stack left side, stable spine, turn left hip, hands first out to straight line release, and finish. Yeah, I mean, those things are all pretty much happening at the same time. So you're going up to the top, and as you're going up to the top, right, you're getting to your lead side. And then as you're getting to your lead side, the downswing is starting and the club is shallowing, right? And your hips are starting to open up. As the club is shallowing, the face is starting to square up, and you're turning, right? So all those things are happening, but they're basically all happening at the same time, and basically. So as you're going up to the top, your weight shift is happening first. You're getting that pressure in your lead foot. It's starting with the middle of your body. You're getting the hips to start to turn. As the hips, it's like a gear system. If you imagine one starting to happen, then the other gear is starting to turn. So as the other gear is starting to turn, my club is shallowing out, and I'm squaring that club face earlier as I'm continuing to turn. And then that elbow, as that's happening, is coming into my lead side. So yes, all those things are happening, but I would say sit, rotate, shallow, square, and working the club into the straight line release and finish. But I would say that turn of the left hip is happening first. I mean, you're sitting, and that left hip, as you're sitting, that left hip is going back and turning. So if you're thinking you're sitting, the way that you're kind of describing it is you're sitting, you're flattening, you're squaring, right elbow, stack left side, and then left hip turn, hands, and then out in the finish. What's really happening is I'm here, I'm sitting, as I'm sitting, my left hip is going back. And as I'm sitting, my left hip is going back, I'm shallowing. And as I'm shallowing, that right elbow is going in, and I'm squaring the face, and I'm continuing to turn into that straight line release. So you have it right. I would just say it's sitting and rotating. So sit, rotate, flatten, face square, but you really don't have the time to think about all those things happening at once. So what I would look at is what's going on in your swing and focus on one or two of those pieces at a time and getting those to work well. And then once those start working well, clean up another piece. You're not going to be able to think about all those different things happening at the same time because they're happening so close together and things are moving so fast. So typically, if you get the club in a good position here, your body will correspond accordingly. But if you're really if you're getting the club here and you don't do anything with your hips and then go like that, then you may want to focus on your hips. But if you're getting this club, if you're starting to sit, right, you're sitting here, but the club is steep, right, and the face is open, and then you have to go like that, then you may want to focus on what the club is doing. So you got to look at your swing and see what's going on there and see what pieces you need to clean up. So John H. says, in the move section, can you go over the first movements from the top of the swing to start the downswing? What's first, shallowing hips? Where does – yep. So we just talked about that. David K. says, spinal stenosis is compression in the spine where arthritis reduces space where the nerve runs through. Thanks for taking the time. Yeah, David, I wish I could help, buddy. I just don't know. I just don't know what I can do for you. I would recommend talking to a doctor that plays golf. Like I said, I don't think that'd be hard to find. A lot of them play golf. So Ali S says, are you familiar with Eyeline Slider Pro putting swing aid? Any tips on the recommended putter swing plane? Also, how much should be follow through, finish forward direction? I'm not familiar with the Slider Pro, but basically, your swing plane with your putter is really personal preference. I recommend more of a slight arc. So basically, your arms kind of rotate around your body, right? So if that, my arms are kind of rotating back and through my body. So I find that people who try to have a straight back and straight through kind of stroke tend to pull putts. So if you go straight back, you're kind of hooding the club, and then you have to manipulate the face. So I recommend kind of having the club kind of work naturally around your body. If you go to Vizio.com, they actually, I don't know if it's Vizio.com, but it's Vizio putting aids. It's Phil Kenyon's putting aids. Phil Kenyon's a putting coach, works with a lot of great players. He's considered probably the best putting coach out there, but he's got a great training aid. It's a mat that kind of shows the natural arc of the putter. It's a slight arc. That's kind of what I recommend is an arc like that kind of naturally moves around the body, because it's just easier to get the face back to square and working. It's a natural movement. Whereas if I have to feel like the club's going straight back and straight through, I'm going to have to manipulate the face closed and then manipulate the face open through contact. And I'm also pushing the club head out and pushing the club head forward. You just don't see a lot of putters that are very, very good that do that. Pretty much all good putters have that club work a little bit to the inside and a little bit to the outside. That's typically what you see. Now, in a short putt, it may look like it's straight back and straight through, but that's because the putter didn't travel very far. It's a slight arc. So it might move just a tiny bit to the inside when they bring it back. It's more prevalent on, a longer putt where the putter comes back more like this. So, I'd recommend, one of his training aids. It's a little mat that goes on the ground. You put the ball on it. It's got the little arc on it. I considered getting one because I do like to work on my putting sometimes, but I find that my arc is pretty much, I've looked at it on video. It pretty much already looks exactly like that. But yeah, that's what I'd recommend is more of a slight arc, but I'm not familiar with that. If you want to work on your putting, I'd recommend working through our Tosby Golf putting system. There's actually a putting rail that we use in there that is really good to help you kind of get that. Now, the only thing I don't like about the putting rail is that it can kind of give you this illusion that you're having a straight back and straight through kind of putting stroke, but that's not actually what's happening, because when you're bringing the putter back, the putter's coming off of the ground, right? If the putter was staying on the ground, it would be straight back and straight through. But since you're lifting up the putter, right, since the putter's moving up, and I don't have one in here. Actually, you know what? I think I do have one in my – let me go grab it, and I will be right back. I'll show you what I'm talking about. All right. So here's the putting rail. This is an Eyeline product as well. I'm not familiar with the one that you're specifying, but basically, if I set it up like this, right? So this is set up for the lie angle of the club, right? And they have ones for different lie angles if you need to get it adjusted. But basically, what you can do initially is you can actually set up where the putter's on it and then kind of get a sense and feeling for the stroke by keeping it on there, right? And then once you kind of get a sense and feeling, okay, this is how the putting stroke is, and you can, the only thing I don't like about it is it gives this illusion that the putter goes straight back and straight through, but that's not the reality because the putter's going up in the air. So the putter's actually going to the inside as I'm lifting it up. But once you get good at it, you can actually set up to where you're just barely off of it, and you can take some strokes that way. And you kind of feel the putter kind of naturally move around your body. So if you look at it from this angle, you can see as I lift this putter up, you can see the putter actually move it a little bit forward. So you can see it on the screen here. So as I'm right here, as I lift this putter up, you can see how it actually goes to the inside a little bit. If I keep going, you can see how this putter works to the inside. So I would do some where you kind of have it on there, and you can get the sensation for how this works, and then take it off of there and try to keep it just barely away from it as you're putting back and forth. So that's a good thing to use. I like the putting rail. I'm not familiar with what the one that you're talking about, but I may have to look into it. But the putting system, Toss Golf putting system would be good. And then you ask, how much should follow through finish forward directions? So basically, what I like to see is at least the same going through, because what a lot of people don't realize is that even though you're accelerating through the ball, your putter may not finish at further, or it may finish the same amount. So if I bring the putter back to this line, a lot of times it will finish at this line or just a little bit further. Because what happens is you hit the golf ball. When you hit the golf ball, it takes energy out of the club. So that actually slows it down a little bit. So this particular stroke right here, if I were to set up to this, and I were to go back to here and then put through to there, that would be pretty ideal. So here, yeah, so I would say that was a pretty good stroke right there. Now, most people what I don't like to see is where people are really trying to accelerate too much through the golf ball, because that takes away feel. So if I were to go back to right here and then go like that, like that's not what we mean by accelerating through the golf ball. You're going to have poor speed control if you do that. If you look on here and you actually go to a little bit past, so if I go to this line here and then go a little bit past that line there, that's pretty much ideal, because that means that you're accelerating through the ball. You're speeding up through the golf ball, but the golf ball is taking a little bit of energy out of the club, so it's not going to finish way over here. So that would be, if I took this stroke right here where I went back to here and ended up right here, when I add the golf ball, I'd probably go back to here and only end up right there, because the golf ball takes energy out of the putter. So I would say that's where you want to be. So if you want to set up a tee, on one side and then a tee on equidistant on the other side, drag it back to one tee and then just try to accelerate through a little bit past the tee on the other side. That's going to be that's going to get you in a pretty good place, working on, getting that proper, that good tempo and that good acceleration through the ball. And then Ali S goes on to say, I typically have a 36, 37 putts in an 18-hole round. Any recommendations with lowering the number of putting strokes count? my biggest recommendation would be to hit it closer to the hole. And then my second recommendation would be to improve your putting by working through the Top-Speed Golf system. So, I don't know, how, because typically, if you're further away from the hole, you have a pretty good chance. So I think it's like 33 feet, I think. So if you're at 33 feet, the best players in the world, the best putters in the world are more likely to 3-putt from 33 feet than they are to 1-putt. I think that's the number. I can't remember. I think it's somewhere in that area. So you need to hit it closer to the hole if you want to have less putts. And then to improve that, you want to work on through the Top-Speed Golf putting system to improve your putting as a whole. So closer to the hole, and then work on improving your putting by working through the Top-Speed Golf putting system. To get to the putting system, click the house icon at the top of the page. Scroll down the page, see a list of all the courses. Click on the putting system and get started on that. So Joseph S., thanks you for addressing my question. Great response, and I will start in small drills to get the right feeling. No problem, Joseph. So Ed D says, can you please talk about the timing of the rotation from the top? I have a nice lag and shallow the club at the max lag, but then it looks like as I start to rotate, the centrifugal force casts the club before the butt end the club reaches my right thigh, i.e. the club is below parallel. How do I time up the release better? So it sounds to me like you are squaring the face by releasing the club earlier. So you're having a hard time. You're having a hard time getting to that position at impact. You're more than likely not opening up your hips. You're probably rotating, but you're more than likely not opening up your hips when you get up to contact because you're throwing the club as you get to contact, not you stalling out your hips and then throwing the club. That's if you get the hips started. So if you're doing what you're talking about, where you're coming down, the club is shallow, everything's looking good, but then everything looks good to right here. All right, so the hips have started to rotate. Your club is shallow. You've got good max lag, but then when you get to right here, you're like this. That is because you're squaring the face by flipping and releasing the club earlier. That's not because it's not likely because because typically once you get the hips in a good position, they'll keep going, and your hips probably are moving, but they don't open up enough because the arms because you're releasing the club early to square the face. So what I'd recommend working on is the tennis racket drill, which is a combination of shallowing out the club and getting that face square earlier. So that way you can have that face square already and you don't need to release it early. You can have that face square early and have that hands in front of the golf ball at impact. So that's what I'd be working on is the tennis racket drill. That's my best guess for what's going on there is that you're more than likely releasing the club early to square the face instead of having that face square earlier and then turning into the golf ball when you're coming in. So I'd look at your swing on video to see if that is the case. See if that face is pretty open and then you release it. Or it could be the hips and you just need to think about the basically your body is the only thing bringing the club into the golf ball. Because right now your hands bring the club into the golf ball, right? And it's not the body at all. So I would get to where the club is shallowed out. You have that lag, and then I would feel like the only thing from here to impact that brings the club into the golf ball is the hips. That's it. So there's a great drill for that. It's called the slap shot drill. So if you do kind of like a split grip like this, because if you split grip, it's hard to do this, right? It's not going to feel very natural. Whereas if I'm trying to hit a golf ball, it feels very natural for me to go like that, to really open my body and flex my legs. So if that is the case, then I would say this drill would be good. So split grip, put one hand here, and just do some practice swings where you're really focusing on, because if you get here, it's going to feel like you just want to whip the hips through to hit it. Whereas I'm not going to go like that to hit it. I'm going to go like that to hit it. So that'd be a good drill. You can try to hit some balls with it, but I would just try to get the feeling of how the hips are working. But you could try either one, but I would venture to say probably an 80 to 90% chance it's because you're squaring up the face by releasing the club early, and that tennis racket drill is what you need to work on. So Matthew W says, thank you, no problem. Lawrence G says, on the downswing, do you recommend pulling down with the left arm, or can you use the right arm as the dominant arm? You're using both arms. And really feeling is relative. So you have to base your feeling on the result of what's going on. So, feel isn't always real. Most of us know that, feel isn't real. Sometimes you may feel one thing, but another thing is actually happening. So what the reality of what's happening is that you're using both hands. The best way that I can describe the reality of what's happening is like if I was to throw a ball sidearm, like I was a sidearm pitcher and I was throwing it that way. If I was a sidearm pitcher and I was throwing the ball that way, I would come in, I'd have my arm bent like this, right? And I'd have that club kind of out in front of me, and I'd be coming in, rotating my body open, and then releasing that club, just releasing that ball just like that. That's how I would have a lot of power. Most people, most amateur players, it's almost like they're throwing a ball into the ground. They're a baseball pitcher, and then they take the ball and they just spike it into the ground like that. That's casting. That would be that motion right there. That's typically what you see in amateur players. So you may need to feel like your right arm, it does nothing. You may need to feel like it does absolutely nothing. Or you may need to feel like you're a sidearm pitcher and you're bringing this club more like this and you're releasing it more like that. That may help you as well. Then as far as the lead arm goes, the lead arm I like to visualize like you're throwing a Frisbee. So I'm right here, I'm coming down, and I'm opening up my body and I'm throwing a Frisbee toward the target. That's what I want to feel like. I'm releasing that that way. So both hands are doing stuff in the swing. It's just a matter of adjusting your feel to get the desired result that you want. If you look at your swing and you see that you're doing this right away, it could be because you're spiking the ball into the ground. So you may need to feel like you're throwing a ball, that way. Or you may need to feel like your right arm does nothing, and you do better with the feeling of the lead arm working through. So it really just depends. You got to adjust your feel to get the desired result that you want. Everyone's feel is a little bit different. It's very relative. So you just got to find what works best for you. But literally what's happening are those two kinds of motions. You may feel like your right arm, if you have the feeling that your right arm does nothing in the golf swing, that's more than likely. If you're someone who's spiking the ball and, spiking it, you're casting the club, spiking the ball into the ground. If you're someone who's doing that and you feel like you aren't using the right arm at all in the golf swing, that's probably not the reality of what's going on. The reality is probably that you're just using your right arm a little bit less. You're spiking the ball a little bit less. So if you keep doing that and you keep doing that, eventually you'll get to where that right arm use is the correct. So it's all about adjusting your feel to get the desired result. All right, so some more questions here. So Gregory H says, a lot of time spent on the backswing and move to get to impact. What should the club and body be going post impact? So basically, here we are at impact, right? So I'm coming in at impact. My hips, or most of my weight should be on my lead foot. 85, 80%, something like that. Should be on my lead foot, more in the heel area, right? My hips should be about 45 degrees open, chest about 20, 30 degrees open, shoulders slightly open to square, handle in front. From here, it's just the momentum of everything keeps on going. So as I go into the straight line release, right? So straight line release, club's going to be about 45 degrees out in front. Hips, basically everything's pointing at that point that's out in front here. After that straight line release, the club takes over, and the momentum of the club brings my body all the way around. Now I want to come all the way up. I want to get my hips pointed toward the target or even left of the target if you're flexible enough. I want to get all the way in my lead heel here. Typically you're going to see that front part of the foot coming off the ground as the foot is twisting open a little bit. I want to try to get my shoulders pointing even left of the target if you're flexible enough. And I want to get this club up around my ears. So if you're looking from this angle, I want to see it kind of splitting right through my ears. That's a good indication of a nice balanced finish there. And I want to see all the spikes on the bottom of my shoes. I want to be all the way up on my toes. That's going to give you, that's what you're going to see in the best finishers of the golf swing. It's all about, if you sequence everything correctly in the downswing and into impact, that happens pretty much automatically by itself. It's really just the momentum of the club allowing the free momentum of the club to come all the way around and bring you into the full finish. And you're going to see some different finishes on tour. You might see some guys that finish more like that, and that's completely fine. But that's typically what you're going to see in most of the best players, is how they let if you do things right in the downswing and into contact, the rest of that follow through pretty much happens by itself automatically as a result of having those good swing positions. So it's usually not something, usually after impact isn't really something you have to work on. And the only time you would really need to work on something that is after impact is if it helps you pre-impact. So for example, if you need to feel like you need to finish your swing and get all the way up on your toe to make sure that you get a good weight shift to your lead side at impact, then that's a completely fine feeling to have. But if you're already in a good position at impact and letting the momentum of the club come all the way around, then you're in good shape. It's going to naturally happen, on its own. So Joseph S. says, me again, I just recorded my swing outside and I think you nailed it. I was too steep coming down to the ball. I will try this at the range today. Thank you. No problem. So Brian C. says, can you talk about how to stop blocking shots to the right? So a block is caused by the path being too much into out and your face being in line with that path but open to the target. So what I would try to, that's coming from this. So that would look like something like this. So what I'd recommend doing is try to feel like you're rotating more, like your hips are opening up, like your body is really opening up. You're probably going to feel like this is happening, right? But the reality will hopefully be something that's more like this, where you're opening up and that club's working down on plane. So I try to feel like you're really opening up and coming over the top, almost like you're chopping into the golf ball. But like I said, it may need to feel like it may need to feel like that to get that club on plane and to get the body opening up the right way. So adjust your feel to get the desired result. One thing you can do to kind of help with this, or to help you kind of visualize how this club's got to work, is to set up some constraints. So what that would look like is, if you're swinging too much from the inside, I would set up these constraints. If I have my ball right here, I would set up these constraints to force you to swing more out to in. And once you get it to where the club's working too much out to in, then you can adjust it. So the way to do that, if I'm blocking it, meaning I'm swinging too much into out, I'd set up these constraints. So one behind and to the left and one ahead and to the right, to force you to get this club to work more like this. And then once you get the ball, once you start pulling it, or you start hitting some slices, then I would ease off of these a little bit. So that way you can swing more on plane. Then I would try to get the ball to straighten out. And when you're doing this, you may want to start out with some short swings, some short, just taking the club to parallel and slow. And then once you're able to do it there, then I may take the club to parallel with the lead arm and do it there. And then once you're able to do it there, I take it to a full swing and try to do it there. So Brian C. says, thank you, no problem. Richard H. says, what caused me to finish on the toes and the follow through? Most likely early extension. So if I'm coming through and I'm like this, right, my hips are moving toward the golf ball, right, and I'm standing up, that's going to force me to get on my toes as you finish your swing. So what I would try to feel like is the opposite. I would get here and I try to feel like my hips moving back, right, almost like there's a wall behind me. And I'm trying to push into that wall as I'm starting down. Now, a big issue that I see with people who try to do this, is when they do that, they swing over the top. So make sure that when you get this feeling that you're pushing back, you're pushing your hips back, that you're also swinging from the inside as you're doing that. Because, like I said, you'll typically come over the top if you do that. So get that club working from the inside and get into your lead heel. So that way you can clear the hips out of the way and finish in nice balance there. So try to feel like you're in your left heel as you're coming down into contact and you're swinging from the inside. And that should help out quite a bit. So Ed D says, thanks, Q. FYI, I tend to over close the face since working on the tennis racket drill. we'll try the slap shot drill. Yeah, so you're probably just turning down the handle too much, and you're probably still working the club in to out. So you need to get that club working, or you're still probably working the club out to in. Get that club working more in to out, and ease off of that turning of the handle a little bit. Try to hit some blocks, out to the right. Try to hit some balls that start to the right and don't have a lot of curvature on them. And then once that starts getting better, then I would just start easing off of it a little bit to get it in the right place. All right, so any more? Let's see if we got any more questions. So we got a couple minutes left. If you got any last minute questions, go ahead and post them on there. If not, we'll go ahead and wrap it up for today. Give you another minute to post a question. If not, we'll wrap it up. Take the dog outside. I'm sure she's been waiting. Just FYI, this Friday, I'm actually going out of town. So Robin will be doing the office hours on Friday. And then the Friday after that, next Friday, Robin will be doing it as well. Going out of town 2 weekends in a row. So you'll get a break from me on Friday. You guys can ask Robin some questions. So Douglas said, do you see the ball at impact? Not typically at full speed. Things are typically are moving too fast. It's more of a blur. Chips and things like that, you can kind of see things are moving slow enough. Putting, chips where things are moving slow enough, you can typically see it. But typically with full speed swing, things are moving so fast it's kind of a blur. You don't really see it. You really don't see the ball impacting. So one more question here from Scott. Says, hi, Q. I still have difficulty opening my hips no matter how much I seem to try. They seem to stall. Do you have any suggestions? I'd recommend getting the club into a better position in the transition. So that would be getting the club shallow. Because typically, the biggest reason why I see people who don't open up the hips is because either the face is open as they start down, or the club is steep. So if I have the club steep like this, I can try to open up my hips all I want. But typically, if I do just try to open up my hips with the club steep, I'm just going to swing way over the top. So, your brain is probably telling you from right here, you got to get this club on plane. Otherwise, you're going to swing over the top, chop down in the golf ball. So no matter how much you open up the hips, you're probably going to go like this because your brain's telling you this is bad. This gets the club on plane, but when you do this, you can't open up the hips, right? So what you need to do is you need to get this club on plane sooner in transition, so that way, once I'm right here, now I can stay in my posture and rotate. All right, so that would be one. The other thing is having a very open face. So if I have an open face, I can start turning my hips here. But then this face is open, and I have to, if I keep going, that face is going to be wide open, right? So what most people do, they have this face wide open, they flip the club to get the face square, arms raised in front of the body. So the move is most likely what you need to work on to get that club more in a better position where it's squared up sooner, it's in a shallow position. So now I can turn. I got to flex my knees. That's the other thing too. I see people all the time. They get right here. They just try to turn the hips, and they don't dig into the ground at all. They don't flex the legs at all. You can't really open up. You have to basically, if you don't get lower to the ground at all, if you don't kind of dig into the ground, flex into the ground, you're just going to throw the club into the golf ball to get to it. So shallow, square, and then get into the ground so that way you can rotate your hips. If I have my legs straight like this, I can rotate my hips, but not very good. And also the handle's high, so I'm just going to throw the club. But if I'm down, if I have my knees kind of moving apart, now I can really move my hips very good, and my hands are lower, so that's going to help me to get that club to release out in front. So the move, get the hands lower, get some flex in those legs. Feel like you're getting that handle really, really low to the ground. See what's happening with my legs here. A lot of flex with my legs. My knees are moving apart from each other, and that's allowing me to open up my body. All right, so thanks everybody for joining me. We'll be back here tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern time. Everybody have a good rest of your day, and I'll talk to y'all next time.